What's up, y'all? Welcome to Monday Morning Get Up. It is February 7th, 2022. My goodness. I'm so glad that y'all are here with me this morning. So glad that y'all are here for another Monday Morning Get Up, the show where we spend just about 15 or 20 minutes giving you a little bit of extra in your morning, a little bit of extra jump up and push for your week. And so we really want to help you this morning. And this month is Black History Month. So we're going to be spotlighting some figures in Black history and present history, and maybe even some future makers this month. But before we jump into our statement this morning, a couple of things really quickly. Thank you for joining us on Instagram. Hey, RD Adventurer, good to see you. Thank you for joining us on Clubhouse. Hey, Milton, good to see you. Those of you that are joining us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we're so glad that you're here this morning. Before we jump in, I just want to remind you about the upcoming Story to Stage Summit. Listen, if you are a small business owner, if you're a solopreneur, if you have 1 to 5 employees, if you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, and you are in this space where you're like, my goodness, it's time to stop being the best kept secret. Stop hiding in plain sight. It's time to get more visibility for my brand, learn how to attract my ideal audience. We want you to sign up for the Story to Stage Summit. So you can go to www.storytostagesummit.com and get signed up there. It's February 22nd and 23rd. We've got a fabulous lineup of fantastic speakers, presenters like Delatoro McNeil, Tom Schwab, Lois Kramer, Kat Dunn, Kirk Nugent, Shannon Bussey, Rain Bennett, Diana Gladney, and myself. Yeah, we're going to be chatting a little bit on that day. So I want you to sign up for that. Again, if you're a small business owner looking to gain greater visibility for your business and figure out how to attract your ideal audience with that one thing that only you have, your story. Join us on February 22nd and 23rd. So listen, here we go. Let's get pumping for today. So today's statement is, never be limited by the limited imaginations of others. Never be limited by the limited imaginations of others. And that is a quote by Dr. Mae Jemison, who was the first African-American woman to go on a space exploration journey, right? To be on the space shuttle, to be to orbit the Earth. And so why did I want to focus on the word imagination today? Well, I like to watch movies, right? I like to watch superhero movies. And every time I see a Marvel movie or a superhero movie, I wonder about how they came up with the storyline. I wonder about the different planets and the universe and the way that they've envisioned it. We're down here on Earth, right? And our world is so insular and small sometimes that we think that our block, our city, our town is all that there is. But then you've got these people that see something bigger than just Earth. They envision bigger planets and they envision a lot of stuff. And I often wonder about how they imagine that stuff. So let's chat a little bit about imagination today. So Mae Jemison, who shared our quote today, and she said, never be limited by the limited imaginations of others. When she was a child, she took an interest in Star Trek. I don't know if you've ever watched Star Trek. Mae Jemison was born in the 50s, so she didn't get an interest in the Picard Star Trek. She didn't get an interest in the Data and the LeVar Burton Star Treks. She got an interest in the original with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, Captain Kirk and Spock, right? She got an interest in Star Trek at an early age, and she was particularly interested in the character Lieutenant Uhura. Now, she often wondered, one of the things that she wondered a lot of times was, why are there no female astronauts on the Apollo missions? She was a little girl in the 60s and early 70s when the first missions went to the moon and otherwise. And she wondered why there were no females on these missions. She wondered why there were no astronauts that looked like her. So As a matter of fact, she got this interest in science, and she would share this interest and share that she was interested in science. And one day she told one of her teachers that she wanted to be a scientist. And the teacher looked at her and said, "What do you mean? Do you mean a nurse?" She said, "No, I want to be a scientist." And the teacher looked again and said, "Well, you can be a nurse. Here's how you become a nurse." And the teacher told her how to become a nurse, as if there was disbelief that a little black girl could become or would want to be a scientist. So Mae, she was a feisty little girl, right? She was feisty. And anytime you told her that she couldn't do something, she made up her mind that she was going to do this. Now, she took up a lot of other interests. She was actually really good at dancing, and she started choreography and choreographing and dancing and doing a lot of different things. But science never left her, and she wanted to be involved in the sciences. So she went to school. She actually went to college at Stanford at the age of 16 and studied sciences there, and then did a medical program after that. And it was in 1987, at the age of about 30 years old or 31, that she joined NASA. She had always had this thing on her mind since watching Star Trek and wondering why there were no little girls, why there were no females on these space trips. And so she had her eye on NASA. So in about 1987, she joins NASA. And then in about 5 years from that, from 1987, 1992 is when she got chosen, and she did the work and the preparation, and she got to be on the space shuttle Endeavour, which orbited the Earth for 8 days, right? That's amazing, right? That's this amazing thing. And so she became the first African-American female to go to space. Amazing, right? From a little girl who's just watching Star Trek, she becomes the first African-American female to go to Star. Here's another first that she had. She goes to space in 1992, and this is crazy, right? She goes to space in 1992, Space Shuttle Endeavour. She orbits the Earth for 8 days. In 1993, 1 year later, LeVar Burton finds out that she has an interest, or that she's a Star Trek head, right? She's a Trekkie. And so they invite her, they work it out so that she can appear on Star Trek: The Next Generation in a role, becoming the first real life astronaut to appear on this show. Right? So from a young girl who's watching a show and noticing inequalities, and noticing what's missing, and then being told that you can be a nurse, not a scientist, not anything greater than that. You can be a nurse. She continues to think about and dream about things that are greater. She continues to push forward and know that there's something more that she can do. She continues to exercise her imagination, right? And the thing about this is that a lot of us misunderstand or are unclear about what imagination really is. Imagination. So here's a definition. If we want to think about imagination, imagination is the ability to create mental images and scenes of events that happened in the past, or of an imaginary future, and maybe something that you want to be experiencing, maybe something that you want to experience. And if your imagination is powerful enough, it's not just limited to seeing pictures in your mind. You can imagine physical sensations and smells and tastes and music and things that it's also possible to imagine feelings. Imagination is a powerful thing. And here's what has happened with a lot of us. Our imaginations have been squished because somebody told us that we couldn't do something. So Mae has this thought process. She's seeing this show. She's like, I can be this. I can go to space. I can do all these things. And she tells somebody that she's interested in becoming a scientist. And they assume that she means something else, because there's no possible way that this little child, this little young lady, this little girl can know anything or have this dream of being this thing that's bigger. And so she grew up and she did these amazing things, and she comes out with this statement. She says, never be limited by the limited imaginations of others. And see, here's what happens in our space, in our lives. A lot of times we feel like we can't do something because we've allowed others to shape what we can do. We have dreams and we have these ideas, and we share the ideas with others, and these dreams are great and they're magnificent. And then we share them with somebody who takes the dream, this beautiful, big, fluffy dream that you have, and they jam it into this little square box. And the pieces that don't fit, they chop off and they give it back to you and say, hey, this is all that you can do. Isn't that terrible? A lot of our dreams are chopped and squeezed and squished by somebody else because they had a limited imagination themselves. And if you're a grown-up and a child comes to you and is sharing your dreams, I want to encourage all our grown-ups out there to make sure that we encourage our children to dream, that we encourage our children to imagine and to continue to embrace imagination, because so many of us grew up and our imaginations were squished. And here's the thing, mental growth happens because of imagination and imagination. And some of us don't like imagination because it means that you kind of push against some of the rules sometimes, right? Imagination fits outside of what's the ordinary. Imagination challenges the notions of what is commonly accepted. And so the thing that holds a lot of us back is that we've been pushed, or we've been squished from imagining and dreaming anymore. And imagination is this thing. It's a scary place for a lot of people because they themselves have embraced being limited. Imagination, I like to say, imagination launches from the outer edges of what's been proven already. Imagination isn't static. Imagination is dynamic. Imagination is outside of the storybook. Imagination says what's more or what's next. Imagination says, my goodness, we can do 3 times or 10 times that amount. Imagination says, oh my gosh, we've got this other car. Let me see if I can make a Tesla. Let me see if I can make something that's electric. Let me see if I can make something that doesn't require gasoline. We've spent the better part of the last century with cars that are gas. And here in the last 15 years or so, some guy comes along and he's like, yeah, let's try to do it with just electricity, and we're going to make it sexy, and we're going to add these other things to it. Imagination, again, lives on the fringes and launches from the outskirts of our reality. Imagination launches from the outer edges of what's already been proven. So here's the question for you. As you go throughout your week, as you think about the things that you're doing, as you think about your job, as you think about your life, as you think about your routine, as you think about your everyday, what else is there that you may not even be thinking about? What other possibilities exist? And the thing about imagination is that it may not even exist just yet. It may not even be thought of as a possibility. So if you can look at everything that you're doing and you can figure out, or if you can imagine something that would make it better, if you can imagine something greater, or if you can even imagine the ridiculous, what would that look like? What would that be like? What would that feel like? What would that smell like? What would it taste like? Imagination is this amazing thing that has been taken from so many of us. And I want to encourage you, I want to implore you to explore imagination once again. Because when you begin to explore imagination, you're going to see entirely new worlds opened up to you. Walt Disney had this name that he called his people that worked at Disney. He called them Imagineers. Let's be Imagineers today. As you go about your day, as you look at your week, what is the next step? What is the next thing that you can imagine? How can you create an entirely new world, an entirely new galaxy? How can you create an entirely new universe from where you are right now? Yeah, bring it back. Bring imagination back. Let us rock and roll and let us think even bigger than we have before. Listen, for those of you that are in Clubhouse, we'll continue the conversation for another 10 minutes after this. Thank you so much for joining me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. Again, don't forget, get registered for the Story to Stage Summit, February 22nd and 23rd. We are going to be rocking and rolling, and we're going to be creating stories from not just your experiences, with your imagination. Go imagine something amazing this week. Yeah, I'll see y'all. For those of you that are in Clubhouse, hang out with me for another 10 minutes. Don't leave just yet.